As I'm sure you've noticed by now, that I very strongly believe that it's time for Jews to move to Eretz Yisrael.
No, wait.
Selling real estate? You selling
What?
I should.
What? I can't believe that.
And in my mind, there's no doubt that all Jews eventually will move to Eretz Yisrael. And we believe that Mashiach will come and Jews will no longer be here. So there's really, if you think about it, there's no future for Jews in any galut, ever. I mean, even, at the beginning of the galut of Poland in the, who knows what, the 1200s, whatever it started, there was no future, no long-term future. The only long-term future for the Jewish people is in Eretz Yisrael. And obviously, if someone, tell me, they're moving tomorrow, I would say, hey, go for it. But on the other hand, I've matured a lot over the years. And in the beginning, I was like real fire and brimstone. You probably think I was already fire and brimstone over Shabbos, but like this has tamed down. Trust me. And I would, I really lay it on strong, especially with my friends, saying, what are you doing? You gotta come. It's time to come. And then I realized that, I can't push it. I can't push it. Everyone has to make their own decision. Everyone has their own issues and their own reasons why, they can't do it at that moment. And plus, it's a very big responsibility to take to try to, overly pressure somebody to make aliyah when you don't know what can happen. I don't want to take any responsibility. Someone's going to say, I made aliyah and because of you, my kids, didn't acclimate well and they went off the derech and that. I'm not, at a certain point when my friends, their kids were growing up and they no longer, would it be an easy move? I just said, I stopped talking about it with them. And all I do is whenever I come out with a book, I send them a copy of the book. And it's up to them to read the book. If they want to, take it to heart and they want to move, great. Therefore, in my own opinion, I see there's no one young and unmarried. But, you all have children. You have children who are probably that age. I really believe that you should be gearing your children towards that. You should tell your children, there's no future here. Why are you settling here? Why not, get a profession that's good in Israel so that eventually you'll be able to, or if your kids are still not haven't gone for their year in Israel, make sure that they know that they have carte blanche. They can go, they can stay for Shesh and Bet and Gimel and Dalet and go to college. In my days, that wasn't really a possibility. Do you know that YU is already opening up a program in Israel? You know that? You're like at least part of YU can be done in Israel starting next year. I think only the third or fourth year, starting slowly. I'm very good friends with the husband of the woman who is in charge of YU in Israel. Stephanie Strauss is her name. And they're starting this. And I've been waiting for this for years. But even without YU, there's other programs you could do. And you really, again, it's my humble opinion, especially if you're considering retiring in Israel. I think a lot of people have that dream. But then when it comes time and they really want to make aliyah, but all their kids are content here, so what are you going to make aliyah and all your kids are going to be here? I have grandchildren. I don't want to be far away from my grandchildren. I know what it's like. You don't want to be far away from your grandchildren. So you have to think in the future and say to your kids, don't plan on coming back to America. Just go to Israel and stay. Go to do college, or you're going to come back and do YU. Great, do YU or any other college, but understand that it's in order for the goal. The goal is to come to Eretz Yisrael. And I think I might have mentioned this yesterday at some point. I think today, with things that are going on in the world, I just think it's becoming more and more obvious that there is no future for the Jews anywhere outside of the land of Israel. remember once Rav Schechter saying that he was interviewed for an Israeli newspaper, and he said that. He said this is really many years ago. He said there's no future for Jews outside the land of Israel.
Not even Lakewood?
Not even Lakewood, believe it or not. Not even Lakewood. Yeah, don't get me started on Lakewood.
Go ahead.
There are some amazing people there. I got emails last year from a guy who loves Israel, and he actually eventually made Aliyah. He said to me that he wanted to. I don't know how I got my number. I think it was because of Rabbi Moshe Lichtman. He loved the Sefer. He saw I got his hands on the Sefer, and he contacted me, and he said, I'm thinking of putting together a source book on the importance of living in Israel. Can you send me some sources? So I said, I have some good news and bad news. The good news is I already wrote that book, and or I guess that was the bad news. And the good news was you don't have to work on it now because I already did it. I just saved you a lot of time. And I sent him a copy, and he loves it, and he made Aliyah, and so there are people in Lakewood also who understand it. I'll tell you something.
Wasn't there the guy that started Kfar Lakewood in Israel from Lakewood?
Started what?
Like a Kfar.
Right. Yeah, there's also a bunch of organizations of people trying to get Jews to come and start communities here in Israel. Yeah, no, it's amazing. What was I going to say?
Just move BMG to
There's got to be BMG and speak until
just
we
move
gotta come.
BMG, right? To B'nai Brak, right?
And Montesdorf, there's Lakewood East, the shul.
Go for it. They can live wherever they want, as long as it's in Israel. That's what's important. I was going to say something and I forgot, so I'm going to, if I remember, I will. I'll come back to it. But so you have to start planning for the future, and the future again. The future, even 800 years ago, that should have always been the Jewish attitude. The future is in Eretz Yisrael. That's the only place where we have a future. Galut, as I spoke about today, like the Jew is not supposed to be complacent in Galut or settle down, meaning the mindset should not be, I'm settling here. I remember I had a Rebbe, unfortunately passed away young with some terrible disease, I think ALS, but he had a real profound effect on me. So he was totally Israeli, and the year I was in Israel, he had a tremendous effect on me, and then it was perfect because he decided to do shlichut in Israel, in America, in Flatbush actually. He taught in Yeshiva Flatbush. And I remember going to his house for a Shabbos. It was like so great for me. Like, the kids always talk about their rebbeim in Israel. They love their rebbeim in Israel. You imagine, and one of the rebbeim came back, with you to America. So it was amazing. And I went spend the Shabbos with him, and I go into his house, and it's like the barest minimum. There's like a folding table with folding chairs and whatever. And I was like, you didn't get any furniture or whatever. He said, "What any furniture here?" I'm like, this is not where I belong. This is not my home. This is just that he was here for a year or two doing shlichut. And that's the attitude that every Jew has to have. I am not telling you, therefore, don't buy furniture and only have plastic folding chairs. I understand that that's not a possibility, but at least the mindset has to be, and always should have been, that we don't belong. It's not where we belong. We belong in one place and one place only. So anyway, so I think we have to plan in the future. Plan for ourselves, obviously, thinking about it, and plan in terms of planting the seeds in our children, or maybe we're up to the age of our grandchildren. Make sure that they go and stay, and there's no reason that they should hold us back when we want to eventually make Aliyah. So anyway, I just want to part with when I thought about what am I going to talk about at this Malav Malka, and I thought something practical, more practical. So I remembered something I wrote in Eretz on the Parsha. There's still 2 copies there. One damaged one, unfortunately. But 2 copies, good copies. One that are in perfect condition. $20. Please don't make me schlep it back. Buy it. It's amazing safer. Okay? So I have a piece there which is exactly, I think, very mat'im for this gathering. And that is, we know that Maaseh Avot Siman Labanim, right? Everything that happens in the Chumash is there to teach us how to act in the future. So Parshat Vayetze, I know we're not there, I don't have to talk about the Parsha. This is very appropriate. Parshat Vayetzi is a very unique Parsha because Yaakov Avinu was really the first Jew since God gave the commandment to Avram, go to Eretz Yisrael. So he stayed in Eretz Yisrael, besides a short stint in Chutz La'aretz when there was a famine. Yitzchak, we all know, of course, never left Eretz Yisrael. That's why he's called an Olat Tamimah, right? He's a perfect Olah. He wasn't allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael because he's so, holy. But Yaakov had to run away from Esav, and he ended up being in Lavan's house for 20 years. And that's what Parsha Vayetze is. It's those 20 years from when he left. Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheva vayelech Harana. That's when he was running away from Esav. And in the end of the Parsha is he comes back to Machanaim, and he comes back to Eretz Yisrael. Right? And so he's the first Jew who went to Galut and managed to come back after a long stay in Chutz La'aretz. So I think it behooves us to see how he did it. Because if we take the lessons of how he did it, how he got back, maybe we can also one day manage to make the move back and get back to Eretz Yisrael. So there were, I think, 6 lessons I learned from the Parsha on this issue. We'll just go through them very quickly. Number 1, we have to realize that Chutz La'aretz is not where we belong, as I said up until now. And where do we see that in the Parsha there? So Yaakov, at the very beginning of the Parsha, makes his famous vow. Vayidor Yaakov neder lemor, imi Elokim imadi, ushmarani b'derech hazeh, etc., etc. So it says there, so the Midrash says, Yaakov said to God, my father Yitzchak wanted to leave the land, but you did not let him because he was a burnt offering, like I just said. Yitzchak was not allowed to leave the land. I am not leaving the land for my own good, but because my brother wants to kill me. I received permission from you, God, and my father, Yitzchak. Do not leave me. That's what Yaakov said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the very beginning, he already ingrained in his mind, I'm not leaving because I want to leave. I'm only leaving because I have to, because my brother is trying to kill me, and I have a really good reason to leave. And if you keep that kind of mindset throughout, you'll understand that, you won't get to the point where you get too comfortable in Chutz La'aretz, because you will always remember, I'm not here because I want to be here, because I'm here because I have to be here. And the second I can get out, I'm going to get out. That's number 1. Number 2, prayer. This is in general, like anything, any problem a person has, spiritually, physically, prayer. We have to understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu listens to our prayers, and we have to pray. And we see that by Yaakov. Because what does Yaakov do in that very same neder? He says, "V'natan li lechem le'achol u'beged libosh v'shavti b'shalom el beit avi v'aya Hashem li le'elukim." So it's a big machlokas amongst the Mefarshim. Where does the if end and the then, right? It's basically, if God does this for me, then I will do this, right? So some of the commentaries interpret the words, and I will return in peace to my father's home, as part of the condition. If God, you give me food and shelter and clothing, and you return me to Eretz Yisrael, then Haya Hashem li le'elukim, and I'll build a mizbeach for him, and right, the end of the parsha there. So, in other words, what Yaakov was saying is, please, Hashem, please, help me get back. So we have to also turn to Hashem and say, help us, help me, help things work out that I can make it back. Number 3, don't be content with the level of spirituality in Chutz La'aretz. This is a big thing. I did not see this in this community at all, but you go to certain communities and you talk to them and they're like, well, what are we lacking here? We have everything. We have Shir Daf Yomi, we have Chesed organizations, we have kosher restaurants galore, a little bit too many kosher restaurants, right? That especially here in Brooklyn, like you can't go half a block without a kosher restaurant. So Starbucks, right? We don't have that in Israel.
Those are all Israeli products here too.
We have other stuff, yeah. So what are we lacking? And that's a big problem because you're lacking kedusha. You're lacking. You know, one of the things that hits me every time I come to Chutz La'aretz, one of the first things, right? Al Yisrael v'Rabbanan v'al Talmidei Hom v'al Kol Talmidei Ham v'al Kol Man de'askim v'Oraita di ba'atra hadein. I'm saying, well, he skipped a word. In Israel, we say di ba'atra kadisha hadein, in this holy place. That's part of the Kaddish. We say di ba'atra in this place, holy, the holy place. In Chutz La'aretz, we don't say that. You're missing something very great in Chutz La'aretz. So we can't be fooled by the level of spirituality in Chutz La'aretz. We say to think we have it all. Understand that this. I said it today in the shir to the youth. Some were there and some weren't. But Moshe Rabbeinu got to the highest level a human being can get. He spoke to God panim el panim. And he still said, the Gemara in Sota Daf Yudalid, he still said, Hashem, I want to go to Eretz Yisrael to keep the mitzvot in Eretz Yisrael. Even he felt inadequate, lacking, because he never stepped foot in Eretz Yisrael. If Moshe Rabbeinu felt that he was lacking, I think none of us are on the level of Moshe Rabbeinu who can say, we don't need Eretz Yisrael, we're good. We're perfectly content with our level of spirituality in Chutz La'aretz. Where do we see this in the Parsha? So, the Tosefta and the Zohar interpret that neder differently. That, and I will return in peace to my father's house is not part of the condition, it's part of the then. If Hashem, you do give me food and shelter, etc., then I will return. I will return. The way they say it is like this. The Tosefta and the Zohar interpret I'll read it exactly. The end of Yaakov's vow as follows. I will return in peace to my father's home. Why? For I know that only there the Lord will be my God. Meaning, Vayah Hashem li Elokim is, why am I going to return to Eretz Yisrael? Because I know only there could Hashem be my God. Meaning, only in Eretz Yisrael do you have a direct connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You might think that things are great in Chutz La'aretz and you're very spiritual and you do a lot of great Torah mitzvot, but it cannot compare it to Eretz Yisrael. I'm not going to start the whole Gemara, the whole sugya of Kol Hadar B'Chutz La'aretz K'misha Ein Lo Aloka and that kind of stuff. It has to be a whole shir to explain it, but the simple reading is that anybody who lives in Chutz La'aretz is like one who worships idols. So that's a crazy statement. But Chazal say it. The Chazal who lived in Bavel said that we who live in Bavel are to a certain degree as if we don't have a God compared to the level of spirituality that one can reach in Eretz Yisrael. So we have to remember that also, and Yaakov did that. I love this one. Never take your mind off of Eretz Yisrael. This is unbelievable. Those who lane will know. What's unique about Parsha Vayetze?
It's Aramaic word.
No, that also, but there's not a single.
It's all
single.
closed.
In a regular thing, there's a parsha ptucha or stuma, right? Means every once in a while there's a space, either at the end of a line or in the middle of a line. There's a space because it's a new inyan now. Parsha Vayetze, the entire parsha from beginning to end is one long paragraph. There's no stop. Why is it like that? So the Sfat Emet says that this alludes to the fact, because again, what did I tell you? What's Parsha Vayetze? It starts off Vayetze Yaakov Be'ershav Vayelech Harana, and it ends at the end that he came back to Eretz Yisrael. Is to tell us that Yaakov Avinu never took his mind off of Eretz Yisrael. Because what's the whole thing about the breaks in the Chumash? Is to stop and think, and then take a break for a second, and then he never took a break from Eretz Yisrael. From the moment he left to the moment he came back, he never took his mind off of Eretz Yisrael. And that's what a Jew has to do. Number 5. Leave as soon as possible and put your trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When Yaakov Avinu, when Yosef was born, finally, he says to his wives, "Vayi kasher yalda Rachel et Yosef, vayomer Yaakov el Lavan, shalcheni, send me forth. That's it. I'm finished. Now that Yosef is born, time to go. Ve'elcha el makomi. I want to go back to my place, meaning to Yitzchak, to Eretz Yisrael." And Rashi there explains, because Yosef was what he needed to fight against Esau. Because Yosef says, what does the pasuk say? Beit Yaakov, Haya Beit Yaakov, Eishu Beit Yosef lehava. Beit Yaakov is like fire, and Esav is like straw. But in order for fire to destroy the straw, you have to have the fire has to go forth and devour them. And Yosef is that, because what is it called Yosef? Lehava, he's a flame. The flame goes forth. So Yaakov knew that until Yosef was born, he can't fight Esav. Now that Yosef is born, so what does he do? The second Yosef was born, he says to his wife, that's it, we're going, that's it, time to go. Meaning the moment the opportunity came up for him to leave and he understood it's time, it's time. No more, none of this, let's make a few $100,000 more, we'll be able to buy a nicer apartment, we'll be able to have it. Just time to go. It always reminds me of the story in Ketuvot, Daf Kuf Yudet, Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera was coming to Eretz Yisrael. I'm pretty sure it's Rabbi Zera. He was coming to Eretz Yisrael. He got to the Jordan River, and he literally just missed the boat. They had ferries going across the river to take people from one side to the other. He missed it, and the next one was not for who knows how long. He found a log lying across the river, and they used to have like a rope tied from side to side, so when you walk over the log, you don't fall in. You just, hold on. And that's what he did. He started walking across the thing, and there was a Tzeduki there, a Sadducee. And he saw this, and he said, you foolish people, you can't have no patience. You've been like this since Matan Torah. You had to say Nasa before Nishma. Doesn't it make more sense to first listen to what the mitzvot are and then say you accept it or not? You foolish people. So what did Rabbi Zera answer? Rabbi Zera said, the place where Moshe and Aaron weren't Zoche to get into, who says that I'm going to be Zoche? Now, Rabbi Zera had made a trip from Bavel. He got to the border of Eretz Yisrael, one side of the river. He said, I might have a heart attack right now. I might not make it over. If I wait for the boat, I might die. There's an opportunity for me to go over the bridge. I don't care what kind of bridge. I don't care if I fall in and get wet and I might even be in danger. I'm walking across. And that was his answer to the Sadducee. When it comes to Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, the moment you have an opportunity, you take it. You don't wait. And that actually happened with me. There's a lot of pressure to make a little bit more money so you can make it easier when you make Aliyah. And Baruch Hashem, I didn't do that. As I told you the story today, that we went when my wife was pregnant, and we didn't wait because I could have stayed and made more money. But I always love telling the story that the apartment we ended up buying, we got it really cheap because it was on paper and it was in the middle of being constructed. And had we come a year later, because I said I want to stay to make more money to be able, the amount of money I would have made is the exact same amount of money that the apartment would have gone up in price. In other words, it would have been totally for no reason. And I made Aliyah, and we found the apartment, and Hashem, we bought it for cheap. Anyway, the moment you have the opportunity, go. And then finally, if all else fails, leave the exile when things start getting bad. And I think this is very relevant for today. After Yaakov, what happens in the story there? Yaakov, Lavan says, okay, I got to give you wages. So the whole thing with the speckled and spotted, if you ever understood that parsha, whatever. And it ends up that Yaakov becomes extremely wealthy, right? And Lavan is not too happy about this. And the way the pasuk goes is as follows: Vayishma divrei b'nei Lavan lemor. Yaakov heard the words of the sons of Lavan saying, Lakach Yaakov et kol asher lavinu. He got everything. He took it from our father. Vayar Yaakov et penei Lavan. Yaakov saw the face of Lavan. V'hinei einenu imo kitmol shel shom. Something had changed. He noticed that Lavan was not the same he used to be. He was always a jerk, but now he was like a super jerk, right? Now he was like really mad and really angry. Vayom, and then what he did? Vayom Hashem el Yaakov, shuv el eretz avotecha u'lo maladetecha v'yeimach. Now it's time for you to go. Go, and don't worry, I'll be with you. The Chafetz Chaim says something amazing on this pasuk. When the nations speak evil of the Jewish people, libeling and encroaching upon us, in the sense of Yaakov heard the words of Lavan's son, we remain silent. Okay, so the sons of Lavan were starting to say things, big deal. We could live with that. But when we see that their faces are not towards us as before, like it says, Yaakov saw Lavan's face and it changed, things were changing. That is, when the heads of state give us angry looks, then we must find ourselves a place of shelter. And the Chafetz Chaim says, and the safest shelter is in the land of our fathers. Return to your father's land. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Yaakov. Now it's time. Now things starting to get bad. You see the Goyim are changing. It's not the same. It's not the same that we grew up with. Things are so different here in America now. It's time to start really thinking of making the move. But again, as I said, smart. You have to use your brains. You have to prepare. You have to do things with a lot of preparation, a lot of thinking about it. And Bezrat Hashem, we'll see you all soon in Eretz Yisrael. Of course, it would be nice if Mashiach would come and help us, but even before that, we really have to think about coming home as soon as possible. Shkoyach, thank you for the Shabbos.
Thank you for the Shabbos.